So today we're talking about a meditative mind. And one of the things I really wanted to talk about in terms of what it means to have a meditative mind, I almost feel like if I could have a subtitle, I'd want to say, having a meditative mind isn't boring. It doesn't mean living like a monk. It doesn't mean, not having emotions, not getting angry, not being passionate, not diving into love and crazy stuff, right? Sometimes we have this imagining that to be meditative, it means that we have a monk-like existence where we are unwavering, right? We are centered. Nothing affects us positively or negatively. We are just constantly in this state of emptiness or Zen. And that's not what a meditative mind is, right? A meditative mind simply means that we're conscious, that we're aware, that we're present, that we're able to see all the pieces. It's like my favorite story that Osho used to tell was a story of Zorba the Buddha. And he believed that the goal of Tantric practice and study was to become like Zorba the Buddha. And, there's this great story about Zorba the Greek, wine, women, and song, just, experiencing everything that life has to offer. Sorry. You guys had me laughing too much. So there's this sense of living like Zorba. Like imagine tasting food and it just, stimulates the palate and your whole body just lights up. I remember the first time I ever had tiramisu in Florence. And I was so innocently sitting there because I'd had like tiramisu, and I put in air quotes, tiramisu like in North America. So I thought yeah, whatever, right? And they brought the tiramisu and I took a bite and my whole body went, oh. I didn't even know my name. I was totally having a Harry Met Sally moment, right? So when we're actually present, we can have these experiences all the time, right? It could just simply be, that feeling when you walk out the door and the sunshine just hits you and you just go, right? It can be anything. But, we have to be here. We have to actually experience it in this world. And what's crazy is it's a meditative mind that brings us there. So, and the problem is that meditation has been shrouded in this mystery that only gurus can do it, only these tantrics can do it, only these, ascended masters can sit in this lovely meditative state, right? And it's no, they're showing us the bliss state that happens when we're connected with our deepest selves, when we're connected with our eternal self. And then we go out into the world and experience this amazing world. Experience sunshine, experience puppies, experience tiramisu, experience lovemaking, experience all of it. But when we do it from this eternal space inside of us, it's all epic. Whether we are angry and we've dove into that anger and passion of that, or we're extremely in love and we dive into that, or we're sad or anything. When we have this meditative center, we can have both, right? We can have the awareness, full awareness of what's going on, and this deep emotional dive as well. It's kind of like the balance. It's like the yin-yang balance, right? This stillness and chaos. The stiller we can be inside, the more chaos we can experience in the world, right? Not chaos in a bad way, chaos in an unknown way, in an exploration way, right? And so meditation's not, the goal is not to be emotionless, withdraw from the world, disappear from reality, not be a part of relationships and family and workplace and all the things and all the drama of the world. But the difference is, it's like, imagine you go to like a movie theater, right? And you know that amazing state of, what do they call it? Suspension of disbelief, where you're completely all into the movie. Like you are just riveted by it. You've forgotten your own personality. You have no idea what else is going on. There is such a blissful thing about that, right? That you're just so 100% in. But imagine you're with someone, like let's say you go on the first date or something, and this person's sitting beside you, and you're like all into the movie. And then they go, oh my God, and they start talking to you, and you're like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, sorry. And you're like, okay. And then, 4 minutes later they go, oh my God, and then they're like, I'm like, and then like 4 minutes later they're like, oh my God, I read the book. You know what they're really missing in this? I'm like, shut up. Like, stop bugging me. I'm in bliss here watching the movie. Like, stop talking to me. There's not a lot that bothers me more than people who talk through movies. It's like, I'm in a bliss state in full communion with the movie right now. Do not distract me. But this is what our mind does when it's out of control. We could be in the middle of having an epic experience, and then our mind goes, oh my God, and it's just constantly jumping in with fears and commentary, and can you believe that? And what do they mean by, and da-da-da, and then you know what else? And it's just constantly doing this. So we never get to have that joy, right? So this is why even when we meditate, it's called a meditation practice, right? It's just being able to sit. I love to just sit in silent meditation. There's a real bliss in that. But it's still practice. It's creating this visceral memory inside my nervous system of a very peaceful state, right? And that's why like sometimes we think, oh, well, I'm not really good at meditating. I can't sit in silence. I can't do it. I'm not good at it. Because we don't understand, we're practicing. So what are we practicing? We're sitting there and we're breathing, we're focusing on our breath, our body, and all of a sudden a thought comes in. Just like, guy sitting beside me just poking random words just to whatever. And you're like, I see that random word, and I'm just going to kind of almost put the clutch in, go into neutral. That's going to float right past me, and I'm going to stay in my space. And then another thought's going to come in. I'm going to put the clutch in, go into neutral, and it's going to just float on by. And we practice not letting the mind control us, not letting the mind take us out of the moment, right? The only reason we meditate is so that we can be fully present in life and have this beautiful communion with the world around us, with the people around us. It's like when you're talking to someone and they say something and it triggers a thought, and suddenly your thoughts are like going out over here somewhere, and you realize you haven't heard anything they've said in the last 3 minutes. Because your mind is, it's gone somewhere. So our minds are very untrained. Our minds are kind of like puppies that never grew up. And they're just like, oh, it's a squirrel. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. Oh. And then our society did something funny with it and said, oh, well, it's healthy. It's multitasking. It just means you have an active mind and and all these things. And it's like, maybe. And then we watch TV that literally stimulates that thought even faster. Then we get on our phones and they create apps that use this high stimulated space. So we literally, even if you're talking to me, I'm so accustomed to this constant scroll and entertaining TikTok videos and commercials that make me feel less than whatever. Even if you're talking, it's all I can do to stay here. So this is the meditative mind we want to cultivate. But it isn't boring. It's the opposite of boring. Like it's actually letting us experience the juice of life, right? Experience every single blade of grass, every single smell that we love, every single conversation with a person, right? That's why we do it. I really have the ums today. So I want to talk a little bit about what a non-meditative mind might look like. So we talked a little bit about that chaotic, interrupting, constantly interrupting paradise mind. And we can understand how like meditation can really bring us to this beautiful center. It's like I picture these chakras, these whirling divine energy centers, right, that are completely perfect. They are absolutely perfect inside of us. And you imagine that within each of us, there's this beautiful connection to the heavens, going all the way down to the earth, and our meditative mind is always flowing in that beautiful, I always feel like a waterfall flowing inside. And then from that space, we have this lovely witness mind, right? We're first inside. That's where I live. That's me. That's my divine self, my soul. And then I go out into the world, and it's like I can experience everything in my periphery 100%. And it all feeds back into this center, right? And it's really lovely. But what happens if we're not connected to that center, right? That center that each one of us has right now, right? You know, we did all the talks about the David Hawkins levels of consciousness. Well, what happens is we get lost in the chaos, not the happy chaos, but we get lost in the kind of the fury of anger, shame, guilt, desire, pride, apathy, grief. Because we don't have this connection inside, this happens and we get pulled off, and then this pulls us, and this pulls us, and this pulls us, and we just feel like we are literally like there's strings all over us, and we're just getting pulled around in life, right? And then we spend all this energy trying to just stay centered, and we can't, and we're exhausted. And the weird thing is, because when we don't have this connection, we feel that all of this chaos is all of our reality. Like that somehow this anger that rolls through my consciousness and I just can't, that's somehow me. That's all I am. Or that if I'm filled with shame or guilt, that's all I am. Or if I'm driven by desire, and I don't mean like a healthy desire of desiring to manifest this and cool things like that. I mean desires that run almost unconscious and drive us. And we're not even, we're not driving the car. The desires are driving the car. We almost can't see past it because we've lost our connection to self, right? And this is where, imagine instead, as we go up the ladder, if there's anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, we did a whole series about David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Force, where he talks about the levels of consciousness that we tend to exist in. Like we get stuck, say, in anger. And almost no matter what we're doing, we interpret the world through this anger filter almost, or we get stuck in grief. And no matter what, we just see the whole world through grief or whatever, or pride or shame or apathy. And then as we keep going up, as our frequency rises, we find ourselves in courage, or maybe we've used courage to actually help us, gently float up out of these challenging levels of consciousness. And in courage, it's almost like in courage, that witness mind appears and we go, wait a minute. Like, there's this moment where you sort of look around and you go, I see this potential for anger, and I see this, and I see this, and I see this. But now we have this other consciousness that we go, what do I want? And we have the courage or the conviction to say, regardless of all of these things in my life, I choose to go forward. And this is this beginning of this meditative mind, this centeredness, this connection to self, this consciousness. And then once we play in this courage space, right, and we're actually looking around and going, I understand everything that's going on in the world, but I also have desires that I want to manifest. I want to explore this world, so I'm going to step forward, even though all of this exists around me. And then beyond that, we step into willingness, neutrality, acceptance. And you can almost feel the meditative center, this connection to this divine energy in every one of us, that eternal space where we go, I guess I can see both sides. I guess if I really think about it, I can imagine it from your point of view, and I can see how you would feel this way. Right? It's like it allows us to more fully experience what we're experiencing, because we're not being pulled by these unconscious emotions. And then, of course, everything changes. Because the more solid we are in this connection to self, and again, how do we get this connection to self? How do we do that? We practice. In Kundalini Yoga, the yoga that I teach, one of the great mantras that I love is Sat Nam. Sat meaning truth, Nam meaning the truth within me is who I am. The truth within me is who I am. And as we walk through life and we practice this, and no matter what's going on, it's like, and someone wants us to think this, or someone wants this to happen, and you're like, how do we connect with that? We practice it and we say, that's not how I see it. That's not my truth. And chaos and fury ensues, and you stand in the middle of the hurricane going, well, that was interesting. But we create this visceral connection to self, and that changes everything. And this is a divine self, every one of us. Like, this isn't just this is what I want. This is like, no, this is what resonates with me, So then what happens is emotions still happen. We incarnated here as humans, right? I didn't incarnate to some place where we don't have emotions. They are part of our human experience. So, and they're not all negative. They're not all just like, I'm lost in grief. This is a real amazing part of being human, to feel, right? So imagine you are in this lovely centered space. You're connected to self. You know that you are divine. Whatever that means to you, you know that you are this, even if you don't even know what it means. But you know that you're not just a meat sack walking around. There's more going on. And then all of a sudden an opportunity arises. Maybe it's joyful. Suddenly you have all this crazy courage to actually feel even more. It's like you're willing to feel, you're willing to risk, and maybe you feel badly, maybe it doesn't work out, and you're going to feel really sad. But you have such a strong connection inside, you're like, yeah, so I'll dive into that feeling, and I'll be really sad for a while, and I'll grieve it, and I'll do all these things. But I never lose me. I'm always here, right? The feeling is an and. It's also part of my existence right now. or real happiness. Sometimes we're so afraid to actually feel bliss, to feel happiness. You have a new relationship, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, but what about, and then, and how long, but it might not even last. And then there's all these things that come in. Why? Why do we do that? Why can't we just be really blissfully happy? Again, there's a fear that says, oh, don't get too happy. But when we're like really inside here, it's like, okay, I'll take this bungee jump. I know I'm firmly attached. I'm okay, right? So it's really interesting that like the paradox is that it's not really a paradox, but when we actually have this connection, this quiet inside, this calm, this ability to actually look around and see what's going on, almost objectively, we can feel everything even more. And not even like feel it like, I'm aware that I'm angry right now. Not like that. If you're angry, you will be 100% in the moment, furious, sweating, freaking out, anger. Right? Like you're not like, I'm observing my sad experiences right now. You're going to actually feel it. You're not going to it's almost like when we do that, it's almost a weird kind of bypassing because we're meant to feel emotion. We're supposed to be passionate. We're not supposed to observe our passion. So, then it's a very fascinating, beautiful blend of getting to feel in the world. So imagine, like even right now, what if you're a really passionate person? What if you're a very sensitive person? Right? What if you're a very empathic person? When we focus on developing this meditative center, we can be as fully empathic as we are. We can be as sensitive as we are. We don't need to get rid of those gifts. We just have to add this incredible center within. And then we can be that flow through teabag in the world. Because no matter what's going on, you might go, wow, this is so overwhelming. But you're always in your center, right? And this is the key. A good friend of mine once said, she was like an energy healer in Toronto, and she said, whatever you do, when things get hard, expand, don't contract. Make yourself bigger. Make your philosophy bigger. Make your energy bigger. Allow yourself to embrace all of it. And I feel this is a big part of it, because even to expand your philosophy, to accept something or to understand something, we need to go deeper inside, right? There's a taproot or something we need to be able to have, to spread our branches bigger to understand things. Another kind of mind I want to look at is, I can't remember who it was, but it was a philosopher back in the day. And he used to talk about the calculative mind. That mind that is constantly figuring things out. Sometimes it's a monkey mind, but it's more than monkey mind. Monkey mind can just sort of like squirrel, chocolate, sex, that can be monkey mind. But a calculative mind feels like we're actually doing something important. I'm figuring this out. I'm sorting this out. Like even let's say you're in a new relationship and you're like, okay, I'm going to find this out and make sure this and and we're calculating, right? We're calculating. Or maybe something's going on in our life and we're trying to sort it out and we're calculating. Our mind's just like, and it thinks it's doing something very intelligent, but it's not, right? And I dig a calculative mind. I have a math degree in combinatorics and optimization. This is literally, how do you look at the world, figure out all the potential possible patterns, and find the optimal solution to it. My brain loves that. Like, I dig calculating. This was my wiring. But, back in 1999, when I got sick and I had the breast lumps, and if you guys are new, I wrote a book about it called What If You Could Skip the Cancer, which is the whole story. But a big part of that story was Jim, my teacher, saying, Katrina, you have to learn to turn off your brain. And because he used to say, like, he would come, and he was a really interesting man. Like, he was genuinely my first true spiritual teacher. He was really like Zorba the Buddha, to be honest. Like, he's still alive. But at the time, like, he had this incredible connection and the most childish twinkle in his eye. Like, he just found the world so entertaining, and he just, he was so much fun. So he would, be with me when I was going through this crisis, I guess. And he'd be sitting there, and bit by bit, he'd be doing this, and I'd be like, what? And he said, your energy is exhausting. He said, being near you is so exhausting. Your brain is going at such a clip. I can't even, like, it's just so exhausting. And of course, then I feel guilty, and then I feel like a loser. Because I'm obviously not nearly as enlightened as I thought I was. I didn't think I was enlightened. And so he was like, you have got to shut that off. You have got to rein that in. Like, that is ridiculous. And I didn't even know what he meant. Like, I didn't even know. That's like, it was like telling someone, I need you to get over there, but you're not allowed to walk there or drive a car or any way you've ever gotten there before, but you need to get there. That was like someone telling me to shut off my brain. I was like, what else is there of me? I don't know what you're talking about. So what's interesting about this is why meditation practices are always taught within a spiritual context, right? It's not a secular study. It's always taught within spiritual traditions. Why? Because the only way for us to stop this calculating mind that thinks we're really figuring out important things is to tap in to the truth. And the truth is, you couldn't calculate what's really going on in the world or your life or within. The only way we can actually do calculations is by pretending the world is much simpler than it is, by disregarding things that we don't understand. Like in Tantric Intimacy, my book, I tell the story of my dad, and I'm not going to go into it deeply here, and there's this story that when my dad was in his 20s, he was driving a tour bus through the Rockies. And he was driving along the edge. And if you've ever driven along the Rockies, there's a lot of places where, it's on the road or down the side of the mountain. Like, there's no other option. And he was going along, and he was heading down the side. And down at the side, there was a turn, and there was a bridge. And the bridge only allowed one vehicle through at a time, right? So you had to stop and then let the other guy come off and pass. And Dad realized just as he was heading down that he had no brakes. And there was nowhere to go. So all he could do was say, well, I just hope there's no one else on the bridge. Because maybe by the time he gets through the bridge and up the other side, the bus will stop and he'll be okay. And sure enough, he's going down the bridge and he turns the corner and there's another full-size tour bus coming this way towards him, and the other bus is halfway across the bridge and he can't go anywhere either. And Dad was there's nothing else he can do. He can't stop. He can't swerve. All he can do is meet this bus like head on. So Dad literally, all he remembers is going along and kind of seeing the other driver like this, and all of a sudden they were like this. And they just drove off. In all of our calculations and theories about life, we like to ignore things like that because we can't fit it in. It's too big. It doesn't fit our Newtonian perspective of the universe. It doesn't fit our scientific idea of, no, I can calculate everything. I can weigh it. I can measure it. I can do this thing. I can measure the gravity. I can figure out the trajectory. I can do this. Unless two full-size tour buses simply, escape the time-space continuum, right? This is what our calculative mind does. It simplifies things so that we feel like we're in control, right? And this doesn't have to be science. It can be relationships. It can be my job. It can be anything that I feel like if I can just simplify it down to a simple enough problem, I can find a solution. But we're not even finding a solution to a real problem anymore. So how do we release that? Well, we have to connect to something inside. We have to connect. And I'm going to say divinity, something else, but like even within a Buddhist culture, which is not a God-oriented tradition, they connect with oneness, nothingness, the supreme emptiness, whatever we call that. And the crazy thing about it is whether we pray in whatever tradition you understand, or if it's Buddhist or Tantric, whatever, it isn't what we're doing that matters. It's the feeling we have inside. You can sit in Buddhist meditation and you breathe, and every so often you come into this place where you go, and you feel it. You feel something that you can't explain. That is what we depend on. And the wild thing is we can't explain it, but we can access it, right? We can touch it. And maybe we don't do it in meditation. Maybe we feel it on horseback and you're just galloping, and this feeling of oneness with the horse and the sun and the air on your face, and you feel this total oneness. And that is the same thing. Right? And it's something that helps us know, it's not just a belief. It helps us know that there's more to this world than what we can calculate. And when we start to feel that, like the Buddha even said, don't just take what I'm saying. Go out and test it. Have the experience. Feel it yourself. Then you'll know it. It's not a belief, you'll know it. And that, in my experience for sure, is the only thing that allows me to say, you know what, I'm going to take that calculating brain and I'm going to just put it in the drawer for now. And I am just going to live in this flow. I can pull it back out later when I need to do spreadsheets and web design and, I don't know, learn a new language or something. But even learning a new language, I'm probably better to just learn it here. I have a feeling, but we can let it go and actually experience something else. The last thing I want to mention is that one of the interesting things about a meditative mind, there's a reason that we often associate it with this chakra, the Brow Chakra, Ajna, right? Because there's something about this stillness. Like, not only is this the gateway to the higher dimensions of self, right? Not out there, dimensions of us, every one of us, right? So this here is this beautiful space. So there's a restingness and a quiet in here, right? That we can actually listen and sort of, it's almost like emptying the room so we can see what appears in it, right? If it's filled with stuff, how would we ever know if anything new arrived, It's like an easel. When it's blank, you just get to paint on it. But if it's covered in scribbles, what can you do? But the other interesting thing, this is not just this meditative receiver of information. It's not just that. It's like when we have this meditative mind, we also can see through this, right? Our third eye, our sixth sense. It's almost like you can look at the person in front of you and you can see their physical being. But if you relax your eyes in a certain way, or you relax your attention on what you're seeing physically, you see them here, or you see the situation, and it's not like, oh, I see their auras. It's not like that. Oh, you might. I don't, but you might. It's almost like you experience an understanding of something bigger, right? Like even if you saw people arguing, if you see through the eyes and the ears, you hear the arguing, you see what's going on, and you get caught up in that very 3D drama of things. But if you step back and you just take a deep breath and you look at it, you truly look at it with the desire to understand what's happening, other awarenesses come. And you realize, this is an old argument. They've had this before. Or perhaps they've had it with others and they're just using each other to walk it out. Interesting. Right? So suddenly this ability to see the situation from that eagle view, right? To be able to go, interesting. I'm seeing the pattern here. Right? It's very valuable. It's very valuable to have that sight also in life. And then you can dive into the emotion of it too, and you can do whatever, but you have choice. And you're kind of making every single choice from that soul place, right? From that really conscious present place. Life becomes really, really fun and interesting. There is a voice that doesn't use words. And it's a really big deal, this voice that doesn't use words, because sometimes we think that if I can't put words to it, it's not real, but that's the key to feeling that visceral truth of, I don't know, eternal source, or however, like we don't even have words for it, right? But it's almost like, do you ever hear that story? I mean, it's just a metaphor or a story, but of these two twins, and they're inside their mother's womb. And they're talking about how they're going to have to leave the womb soon. But they can sense the mother. They can feel the mother. Even though they've never seen the mother, they can feel the mother. It's like that, right? That if we go in and we listen without words, you can feel something. And we know that feelings are so strong. You just think how emotions wire into us when we have certain experiences. We only see it like a trauma response, right? Because that's normally where the dysfunction rises or the challenges rise that we carry through our lives. But it also works in the positive, right? Every time, and it can be anything. You could be doing a guided meditation. You could be sitting in meditation. You could be doing yoga. You could be walking on the beach. And when we're really conscious and we allow this joy to permeate us, it also wires into us. It changes our consciousness. And then it has this subtle ripple effect into every single thing we do. Like every conversation, every choice, so important. Well, thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a wonderful day.